Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Veg Networking Canada. It's important to honor, acknowledge, and respect that many of us are located on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of many Indigenous peoples of Canada. So here we are, another episode of Veg Networking Canada. We are a community where vegan, plant-based companies connect and collaborate. We have a special guest with us today who has a degree in food engineering from the State University of Campinas, which is near Sao Paulo, Brazil, and an operations management certificate from BCIT. She's a self-proclaimed health and wellness lover. Plus, she's an expert at improving processes in the food and beverage space, along with a passion for research and development. Veg Networking Canada is pleased to introduce Virchew's operations and research lead consultant. Welcome, Tatiana Victorino.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we're so happy that you're here to tell us more about you personally, as well as the company that you're here to represent, which is Virchew. So why don't we start with you personally, and you can share a little bit more of how your own vegan plant-based journey has unfolded.
Yes, absolutely. Um, so I'm from Brazil. I came to Canada in 2012, basically to study English, and English is the universal language, international language, and ended up falling in love with Vancouver. It's such a beautiful city, especially in the summer. And then decided to stay and ended up immigrating to Canada. So I was not a vegan at all in Brazil. We eat a lot of barbecues. But when I think it was around 2014. So I was start to looking more into health and nutrition. And I was like, wow, interesting. Like all these things that I didn't know about. And eventually, due to a chronic health condition, I decided to, change my lifestyle. And one of the key factors is your diet. And knowing about how meat can be very inflammatory for the system, I decided to, you know, first of all, it's cutting out meat, and then slowly, I became vegan. So that was kind of my story. And then during that process was interesting was that whereas all the documentaries came out. So I just ended up getting more information and more reasons why that lifestyle would be better, not only for my health, but for, the health of the planet as well. So I think, everything came kind of in the same timing. It was around like 2015, 2016. And yeah.
Awesome. That's so great. And it just showcases how valuable it can be to have an open mind and take in new information because we don't know what we don't know.
Exactly.
So, in terms of being Virtue's operations and research lead consultant, share a little bit more about your own entrepreneur story and how that happened. Did it start with Virtue? Was it something previous? How did that unfold?
Yeah, so I would say in terms of entrepreneurship, I was a very entrepreneur kid. Like when I look back, like at 10 years old, I was like, my mom would give me allowances, but I always wanted like, oh, but I want to buy something. And then my mom would say no. And then I was like, okay, I would get all my allowances. And then I don't know how's it called in English, but it's like kind of a frozen kind of this fruit juice frozen, and a lot of kids like it. And I would get all my money and buy that, and then I would sell, and then I would make more money. But I feel like I don't know why. And then instead of using the money and buying something else, like in my mind at 10, 11, 12 years old, I was like, getting all this money for me was like a lot of money, like maybe $10. But then I would go and say, okay, if I buy more and if I sell, I can like double the money. I can triple the money. So, anyway, so that's kind of my crazy story being, a preteen, selling a lot of things, creating like events. But anyway, as I got older and then I went to university, at university, I also I was really part of the there is something called inside the university. They had like a company for a junior company. They call. I don't know if there's something similar in Canada. I believe so. And then in that junior company, students from the second, third year, they can work for the company for free, obviously. But and then we would get so the company would sell services for like food businesses, and we would get graduate students and professors to do the job, and they get paid. And that's like the company actually facilitates the connection between, you know, university and the private sector. So I was working at this junior company, doing relationships, so I was kind of sales. So I would go for a lot of businesses and try to get partnerships with them to help, you know, get some money, like sponsorships, and why not. And then eventually I ended up working as well, doing like follow up. So we had a very interesting case where a banana grower was like, look for our company because, you know, it's a student, so they could afford the project. But the idea was like, how can we add value to our product? And then we contact a couple of, you know, professors, and then you need to find if they have time in the schedule, and they did. And then they created this banana liquor. It's a liquor, I guess. It's like an alcohol drink, but it's made out of banana. And he was able to sell that product all over South America. I remember once I was on a plane and I was reading, like, you know, the magazine, and I saw that like years later, and I was like, I can't believe that they're selling, like, wow. I was like so proud. And that's just one of the many projects we used to do there. It was very fun and exciting. And then again, I think that entrepreneur, I don't know, in my view, which it's a little bit like, it's not like you take risks, but I feel like I take calculated risks. So the idea of like moving to another country, for a lot of my friends were like, wow, you're crazy, right? Like, who would do that? But in my mind, I was like, you know what? We only live once, and I really wanted to have that experience in my life. And I really thought about the pros and cons, and I was like, no, I understand the risks, but I'm ready, and I feel like I wanted to do that, right? And then moving forward, I work in a couple of other companies here in Canada, food companies as well. And with Virchew was actually through a mutual friend. I was kind of looking for something different that I wanted to do. And then I ended up talking to Laura, and then we really hit it off. And we were really aligned, and it was just a great moment. And I've been working with Virchew since. And the idea is just to help, you know, spread the message about plant-based nutrition for dog. It's not only like dog food, but it's also like nutrition, and understanding that, you know, dogs have nutritional requirement, not specific ingredient requirements. And I feel like for a lot of people, they don't know the distinction yet, right? So they was, oh, but my dog needs, you know, meat. But it's like, no, your dog needs protein, amino acids, right? And anyway, so I hope it was not a long answer to your question, but
No, Veg Networking Canada is built on entrepreneurs and business owners, and it's always so great to hear people's sort of origin stories. And I'm sure you're not the first or the last sort of person in a consultancy role now, who started, you know, selling freezies or popsicles to their friends and doubling their money. And so,
yeah, yeah.
no, it's great. No right or wrong answers in this conversation, that's for sure. So, the next question is based on trends or transformation. So maybe, you know, a trend comes and goes, so that's fine if you want to speak on that. Or maybe there's something that you've noticed in terms of an actual transformation. And also maybe tell us a little bit more about Virchew.
Hmm.
And then you can speak to the trends or transformations within the industry that Virchew's in.
Yes, absolutely. So Virchew, Virchew is a company that makes food, meals and treats for dogs, and they are all plant-based, so we don't use any animal products. Um, And Virchew was founded by Laura over, yeah, the concept was over 10 years ago. We've been commercializing our food since fall 2020, and we have hundreds of customers, and it's been amazing to see the results, especially because you would think that majority of vegans would want their dogs to be vegan, but the power and the thing that has been the most interesting is how, the plant ingredients, they have some healing properties. So we've seen dogs with skin issues, digestive issues, even seniors with mobility that have improved significantly their condition when they switch to Virchew. So that has been amazing. And in terms of trends, definitely the sustainability has been a big. It's not even a trend. It's here now, and we are aware of what's happening with the planet. And a lot of the big companies, they are really looking to alternative protein. So I think that for me, when we were talking about alignment, so for Laura, the idea was to create this brand that, it's good for the planet, it's good for the animals. But what I see as in the industry's trend is most of the large corporations, they are worried about we are not going to have enough of the meat products, so they are looking for alternatives just for a sustainable standpoint. And interesting enough, I think Marissa, I think you talked, maybe you were mentioning about your clients having, you're calling the dogs or the pets kids, because that's another thing too, how many people really treat their pets as part of their family. So it's not only saying, oh, my dog or dog food, it's literally, I heard a word called humanization of pets. So since working at Virchew, that's a reality. That's something that we've seen a lot, and it's so interesting. And then with that comes, I want to take care of my pet. I want to, my pet to be healthy, and they care about what they're feeding their pet as well. So I think that's a great, I think that's kind of the trajectory that we're going with in this space.
Yeah, right. There's so much crossover between dog food and human food in terms of, like you said, people, maybe not a trend, but more of a transformation of the messaging out there, moving away from pet and towards family member.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had mentioned, again, similarly to human food, a transformation as well as the functional ingredients component.
Yes.
And
Mm-hmm.
to your point, specifically with dog food, is anti-inflammatory.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting. That's very interesting. So you had mentioned that Virchew commercialized in 2020,
Fall
uh,
22. Yeah.
and the concept sort of born over 10 years, over a decade ago.
Yeah.
So feel free to touch on anything up until where we're at today, or if you just want to use today as a springboard, talk about the future, because that's the next question. We want everybody to know what's in hold for the future, and if there's any special announcements that you leak, that's fine. It's just between us. This isn't going everywhere.
Yeah, no, definitely. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I can say much, but what I definitely can say is that if you go to Virchew.com, here we have a segment for reviews, and we have a lot of testimonials of our customers that have been on Virchew for many and different reasons. And over there, you can see a lot of the dogs with skin issues, with tummy issues, senior dogs. And interesting is we focus a lot on customer service, customer care. And I don't know if I mentioned before, but Virchew has a direct model. So we don't sell the product in any store. So we sell direct. And because of that, we have a closer relationship with our customers. And having that closer relationship, we can also get a lot of information that is very valuable and that we've used to improve the business, right? And one of the things, for example, a lot of people tell us that, wow, because the food we make is a dry blend that you mix with warm water and you serve to the dog. And a lot of people were like, oh, that's so convenient, right? Because a lot of these health conscious consumers, some of them were like cooking for their dog and they were really aware of like the vitamins and the minerals, but this can take a lot of time, right? And once they switched to Virchew, they were like, wow, I'm so happy that I have something that, if I'm going on a hike or if I'm going camping, I can bring that with me and it's not going to spoil because it's a dry ingredient. So that's something that was like, wow, there's another thing that we were like, oh, there's that convenience factor. In terms of what I've been working on, especially over, the last 6 months or so, it's creating partnerships with vet clinics. So it's really important, especially because this food has these anti-inflammatory and it's considered in the vet world as kind of a hypoallergenic diet. Because a lot of people don't know dogs can be allergic to animal protein. They can be allergic to eggs. And I know when I say that, people, dogs allergic to beef is like, yeah. And we had, several meetings with vets, and they always say, yeah, there's some dogs that really cannot, they're allergic to animal protein or develop the allergy over the years, eggs and chicken, etc. And then they actually need the vegan vegetarian formula to offer those dogs that otherwise would what they would eat, right, if they are allergic to animal protein. So that's something that we really want to have those partnerships. One, because we want to let them know that there's other options aside from, the few available vegetarian or vegan formulas in the marketplace. So we want them to know about Virchew. And the second thing, because we have this direct relationship with consumer. So let's say a client or they got a sample from Virchew from a vet clinic, and then they switched to Virchew, and now their skin issue, it's improved. So then they're not going to go back to the vet. So the vet was like, okay, he came here. I was like, I think you have a animal protein allergy. You should try Virchew. It's a local brand here. It's considered hypoallergenic. And these vets have been, referring dogs to vegetarian foods for over 20, 30 years. So it's something very common in the practice. And then, but the thing is, they heal. And then what we do, we follow up with them and see, hey, how are things going? How is your skin? And they were like, wow, it's amazing. The hot spots disappearing. Like my dog's not itch anymore. And then what I do, one of my jobs is to kind of be a bridge between the consumer and the vets. And then we, in a timely manner, we follow up with them and say, hey, we got X amount of people that order Virchew through your referral, and this is the result. And they were like, oh, okay, it's so great for them, because they're like, they came here, I've never seen them again, so I don't know what happened. And then we're like, well, the food helped, and your suggestion worked. So that's great for them, and they're very thankful to know that, oh, good to know. And that helps too, because then now they know, oh, okay, so I referred that and it worked. So, they have that validation as well, which is great.
Wow, that's such a collaborative approach, because obviously the vets don't want customers all the time, right? Like, these vets get into this business to help animals heal and to be able to do that. That's very, very interesting. And so it sounds like the future is like global domination or global partnerships with vets, and maybe like dog rescues and things of this nature and stuff like that. Anyways, exciting, interesting. We'll let everybody know more about the website and on Instagram at the end. So in terms of giving back and charity, maybe you can speak to what that means to you, and or what Virchew has done in the past or is currently doing or planning on doing around charity and giving back.
Yes, absolutely. So in terms of charity, which is interesting, there's one organization that we collaborate with and we want to help. It's called Girl in the Wild. So basically, they offer camps for teenage girls to help boost their confidence. And one of the things, and it's so interesting, we just did, I think, a giveaway where we were donating 5% of the proceeds to that organization. And it's so great. I feel like, especially for teenage girls, in the world of social media right now, must be really even harder than when I was a teenager, right? To really, you know, I don't want to say love themselves, but to really like feel good on their own skin, right? And have that confidence, and that way they're gonna enter into adulthood feeling like good about themselves and confident, so they don't need to follow trends or do things they don't want to do just because peer pressure, or why not, right? So I think that that's great, and and that shows how it goes. I think that sorry, I was just reading about veganism and what that means, because at Virchew we talked a lot about the power of words, right, and your intention. So I was looking to veganism, and it was interesting because it says it's not only the idea of it's like not do harm, right, to animals, and I think we can extrapolate that to humans as well. So I think that that encompasses a great area. But anyway, so that's one. And myself, I really want to one day be more involved with like kids and young girls. Here in Canada, I really like Big Brother Canada and Big Sister Canada. I donate when I can, and I wish I wanted to be more involved as well. The second thing is Vancouver Humane Society. It's another organization that we partner with, and we offer giveaways and the auctions as well. We offer, the Virchew products and various sanctuaries as well.
Beautiful. I can guarantee that we can all agree everybody listening is totally down for more female youth empowerment. So that's incredible. And then you mentioned some other great causes that are totally in line with what Virchew's all about. So thank you so much for sharing. Now, in terms of you and your role in leadership, and you talked about essentially growing into entrepreneurship through the guise of relationships, which is what it's all about. So maybe speak to through that around books, podcasts, apps on your phone that have helped you cultivate a sense of relationship, whether it's mental health or strategy or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I listen to a lot of podcasts. I feel like that's just something that I didn't listen to the radio much back in the day, but somehow I'm kind of I love podcasts. I think in terms of the veganism, I would say The Proof by Simon Hill. I really like his his approach, and the fact that he's very like science based, and I think it's important too, because people come to a plant-based diet from different reasons. In my case, initially was for my health, and then you start learning more. Other people were just because, oh, I love animals, I can't eat animals, right? But it's important to know about nutrition, and I feel like you can eat French fries, and that's vegan, right? So it's important to know about nutrition, and I think his podcast is a great resource, and to know about a little bit. You don't need to be crazy about but it's important to have the amino acids. Make sure you have all the vitamins and minerals that you need. Obviously supplement B12, and anyways, I'm not gonna get into that. Other podcasts that I like, I listen to a lot of podcasts from different subjects. I like finance, by the way. I listen to a lot of podcasts on finance. There's one called Afford Anything. So it's a great podcast because the idea is to talk about, you can do anything you want, but but you don't, sorry, was the phrase like, you can do any, you can have everything you want, but you cannot have everything. It's something like that. Like it's like there's a trade-off in life, right? Like you can, be young and have experiences. Like there are things, but you can have something if you really want, but not everything. So it's a great podcast. It, just remind me of like, okay, I need to like save my money or should invest a little bit. Just being aware of, those things. In terms of books, I read The Atomic Habits. I think it's a very famous one. It's a great book, especially when you get overwhelmed and you have like a bigger picture of something you want to accomplish. I feel like that book is kind of a good reminder of the importance of small steps, kind of 1% each day. And you feel like, oh, it's not much, but really makes a difference over years and even a decade if you have that vision. In terms of apps on my phone, I was just I don't have a lot of apps, which is interesting. I just have podcasts. Um, Let me see what else I can say. Oh, currently I'm reading a book by Michael Singer. I don't know if you know him. It's called The Untethered Soul. So it's really interesting book. I've noticed that I've been taking my time reading books. In the past, I would say, oh, I want to read this book and I want to go to the next one. But now I really want to get the value of, right? So I read a chapter, I kind of reflect about it, I make notes, and then I might read it again. So I was like, I don't need to finish this quickly. So sometimes I read like 2 books at a time because I really wanted to, get the knowledge and learn that and maybe apply my life in some way. So yeah, so I guess.
So yeah, perfect. Absolutely. And that's already kind of touching on our last question, which is around like lessons, tips, advice, touching on slowing down with a book and maybe actually reflecting and even taking notes and then even rereading it. So we can touch on more about maybe some other tips or things that have helped you along the way at the end. But the second to last question for you is centered around inspiration. So we're asking you maybe what does inspiration mean to you, Tatiana? Where do you source it? And maybe also for Virchew, what is the culture around inspiration at Virchew?
Mhm. So interesting enough, I've been always considered a I know you said inspiration, but I'll get there, but a self-motivated person. Um, at various stages in my life, even like family or at university or my first job, like I always got this feedback that I'm not, it's like, I don't need much motivation. I don't need other people to say, oh, if you do this, you get that, right? So I always had that self motivation. And I think it comes from uh, my personality in terms of, wanted to, um, wanted to be the best version that I can be. And I really kind of like a challenge, I would say. So I think I get inspiration from, like, if I would say a challenge. I know that may sound a little hard, but like feel like if something has never been done or like, especially someone like you can do that, it's like I'm one of those. It's like if someone say you can't do that or it's impossible or all of those things, I kind of motivates me to show that no, that's possible and I can't. I can definitely. And I think at Virtue, we normally, when we have like our weekly meetings, we always talk about our word and what we want, not only for like the company itself, but what we want to achieve as as a profession, or where we see ourselves, or what why do we want to go. And I think that's really good. And especially because it's a reminder to, yeah, you are busy doing the job, and there's always things to do. Always. There's always something going on, and you're always busy, but like to have that time to stop and think about, wait a second, where I'm going and what's my goal and where do I see myself. So I think taking that time and have that, you know, that space during our weekly meetings, um it's very important. And it's just a reminder. I know that, but it's like it's good to have that reminder. And I was like, oh yeah, I need to like stop, and I need to think about what are the skills I would like to learn, right? Where do I see myself, or what kind of project I would like to be involved in. So um yeah, so I think for myself, yeah, inspiration, I would say those things.
Yeah, not to sound redundant, but that's an inspiring answer around inspiration. And you don't, by the take of this conversation so far, you do not strike us as somebody who would be inspired or motivated by saying, I told you so. But it's very interesting to hear you say that you are internally inspired and internally motivated by saying, sort of, watch me. So like seeing something and just saying, watch me, and then going and doing it. So
Yeah.
awesome. Now, in terms of the last question, we always preface by saying to folks, again, there's no right or wrong answers. It can be short, it can be long. You can answer it however you like. A lot of
Mhm.
folks don't like the concept of you giving advice here, but that is kind of the idea behind the question. What is some advice or tips or lessons or things that you've learned that you think somebody else listening to this, whether it's a young girl, whether it's, an old guy, is there something that you can share that you think has helped you that might help others?
Mhm. Yeah. So not giving advice. One thing it's interesting. When I was younger and I was very like, I'm still very driven, but it was a different drive. I was like, yeah, I know. And, as I think it's everybody says that, but I think I'm getting to the age that I'm like, I don't know anything. Like, the more I think I know, seriously, it's like, who knows? Like, the world is full of a lot of things we don't know. And I, it's not an advice. Maybe it's like a tip or just a reminder. I would say try to be open minded. And I say that in a sense of, because we don't know what we don't know. And we we learn something, and then we leave with that, and we think that's the truth. And then when you see something that it's the opposite of what you live your entire life, you re- most people, you negate that, right? And we were like, no, that's not true because of this or that. So I feel like, especially, like, I know in Canada there are a lot of immigrants, but like when I first came to Vancouver, it was a cultural shock to me, right? And it's just like kind of an upside down of what I thought was the cool thing, or what I thought was, nice, or whatever. So it's just like, wow, people can live in a totally different way, and that's okay. So yeah, so I would say try to be open-minded. And I feel like, especially talking about veganism, right? So my approach usually, like, I don't try to convince anyone to become vegan. And my friends, we can go out and I eat what I want to eat and they eat what they want to eat. But a lot of them was like, they text me after, say, hey, like, can you give me some idea of different dishes? Oh, what do you have for breakfast? And then I share them my best recipes that I think they're gonna like. But I feel like it's just, yeah, like just being open minded. And if something seems a little bit the opposite of what you believe your entire life, just try to say, but why some people believe that, right? So have that curiosity, I would say, to like, why can someone really believe something that is the opposite of what I believe in my life? So yeah, I would say, if I could give like a tip or advice, would be that.
Well, we're just gonna let that breathe because that was beautiful. That was awesome. No summary of that is needed. I think that I myself will go back and listen to that answer of this conversation anyway. So thank you so much. So before we let people know Virchew's website and where people can find them on Instagram and get attuned to all these new exciting announcements that are coming up shortly, I think. Is there anything that maybe we had missed in this conversation? Any announcements or anything that you'd like to say to those people who are listening before we say goodbye?
Yeah, I think that one thing is like I said before, you can go to virch.com. We are available in all over BC. So we offer free deliveries in the Great Vancouver area, but we ship all over BC. So we have customers in the island, in the interior, all over. Our shop is in Kitsilano, so we have a store. It's not a store; it's more so for like if people want to try samples, or sometimes if they want to pick up their order, they can go there as well. Watch out for beginning of March. There are gonna be some new exciting news for Virchew. And so the idea is just to spread the message across, for as many people as possible. We also are looking forward to get more into that vet partnerships that I mentioned to you previously. Also doing a lot of B2B partnerships as well. It's great to work with other vegan businesses as well, and like collab in a win-win situation. And so you can get a lot of information about Virchew if you go to the website. There is review, there is a page about everybody that works at Virchew as well. And you can also order a sample, a free sample, if someone is wanting to try and see, oh, okay, I'll see how it goes. So we offer a free sample if you're in BC. So yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. There's probably a lot of people listening in BC who are thinking, of course, I want the best health for my lovely furry family member and my dog. So I will definitely grab myself a free sample and check out the whole adding water and making dog food, which I think is really cool because depending on the appetite of you can totally adjust it. But okay, well, that's so great. And for everybody who, did you have something else that you wanted to mention?
No, just Laura just put me a reminder we are available in Canada too. So it's just anywhere in Canada we can ship. It's just because we are not promoting too much, but we are, yeah. But we haven't done like the official launch across Canada. But like if someone, we have a few customers that again was looking for, oh, my dog has these issues and I would like your food. So we make those, we've been shipping to.
Perfect. Well, considering Veg Networking Canada is coast to coast, and those people listening are going to be all across the country, this is great. And for anybody else listening who likes punny jokes like us here at Veg Networking Canada, the name Virchew is Virchew, Virchew. So you can find out more online, www.virchew.com, and on Instagram at Virchew Dogs. This has been a great conversation with Virchew's Operations and Research Lead Consultant, Tatiana Victorino. Thank you so much for joining us here at Veg Networking Canada, and everybody else listening. We'll catch you next time, and who knows, maybe we'll have a conversation with you as well. Take care. Bye for now.